Every single year, as the NFL draft approaches, the narratives begin to swirl. And the mock drafts are constantly shifting for where these prospects will land. Just look back at the past 5 years. There was a time Malik Willis was a lock for the top 5, yet he fell completely out of the first round. Kenny Pickett was also projected as a top 5 talent, only to be chosen at pick 20. Last year, we saw a scenario where, roughly a month out from the actual NFL draft, many claimed Sanders would be the number 1 overall selection. He ultimately dropped to the 4th round. The Raiders, of course, hold that top pick and will undoubtedly select a quarterback. But reports are surfacing that Fernando Mendoza may not be the guaranteed number 1 pick. Now, nobody knows how this will play out. And if I'm being frank, I still believe Mendoza will be the first name called. However, Dan Orlovsky, a former NFL quarterback now with ESPN, has entered the chat. He creates all these different video breakdowns of quarterbacks, and he's been talking about Ty Simpson. He has flat out named him as his number 1 quarterback in this class. I need you to hear this, as he makes some very strong points, and then we'll discuss it on the other side. He says Ty Simpson is QB1 and the best quarterback available. He argues that when you assess their bodies of work and what was demanded of them, you must ask who had to carry their team more, Ty Simpson. And he claims it is not a close race between them. Who took over more games during the season? Ty Simpson. Again, not even close. And if we are projecting what a player was in college versus what the NFL demands and what skills translate, he begins with how you perform in moments of chaos, because that is what truly separates the good from the great. He would argue that Ty Simpson is more dependable in that scenario. Fernando Mendoza rarely panics, but sometimes he drops his eyes to run. Ty Simpson is more steady. Which quarterback was required to make more NFL caliber throws? Meaning 15, 20, or 25-yard in-cuts and crossing patterns. Ty Simpson. And he says the gap isn't even small. For downfield throws like posts and go routes, he considers them close. Mendoza attempts a lot of go routes and excels at them, but Orlovsky thinks they are comparable. For RPOs and quick releases, that was likely Mendoza's system. And when throwing on the move, he sees them as relatively equal. So regarding handling pressure and making big-time NFL throws, he believes it is clearly Ty Simpson. So there you have it. Essentially, Orlovsky is arguing that Ty Simpson is far more prepared for the NFL. He debates who carried their team more, Simpson or Mendoza. In his view, it was Ty Simpson, despite the fact that Indiana possessed a very capable coaching staff and a solid roster. Apparently, Ty Simpson had a heavier burden to lift Alabama into a position where they could ultimately make a playoff run and even contend for the championship game. As he tells it, who dominated more games? He says Ty Simpson did. When we consider what skills transfer to the next level, this is the crucial point that truly makes me question if Fernando Mendoza is the one. Because when you watch Mendoza's film, and I've reviewed a ton of it, I'm sure many of you have too, his throws are not consistently awe-inspiring. We don't see a ton of post routes or sail routes. We don't often see him leading receivers in stride 20, 25, or 30 yards down the field. But that may not entirely be his fault. I believe it stems more from his team's reliance on run-pass options. They utilized a very conservative offensive scheme, as they were built to be more of a defensive-minded team. But with that said, Dan Orlovsky is simply asking which skill set translates better to the NFL, and to him, it's Ty Simpson. Ty Simpson. All right, so that is Dan Orlovsky's position. That's his case. He's declaring Simpson as his number 1 guy. And this also has implications for the Raiders. I am not suggesting the Las Vegas Raiders will hear Dan Orlovsky's take and just agree with it. Of course not. The Raiders employ their own scouts. They also have the greatest quarterback ever, essentially aiding in this choice. And I'm confident they'll make the right call. But are we positive Ty Simpson isn't the player the Raiders are eyeing? Are we 100% certain Fernando Mendoza is the consensus number 1 pick for every team? And can we be sure that John Spyatek doesn't secretly prefer a different quarterback over Mendoza? I realize everyone has been proclaiming Mendoza as the definitive number 1 overall pick, but things evolve in the NFL. New reports and updates emerge. And typically, the early consensus doesn't hold up in the way that people often expect it to. Once more, we don't know John Spyatek's plan. We just know we are taking a quarterback. I should also put this out there. Ty Simpson is a first-round talent. He will be selected in the top 15 picks. I would not be shocked if he's a top 7 or 8 selection. It wouldn't even surprise me if the Jets take Ty Simpson with the 2nd pick. I would not be the least bit surprised if that unfolds, because we've heard from many that Ty Simpson is a definite first-round prospect. Let's circle back to the real question. Is Mendoza actually superior to Ty Simpson? It's a fascinating debate. We're obviously inclined to favor Mendoza, since that's the narrative pushed by scouts and Twitter analysts. Kurt Warner, who performs a similar role to Dan Orlovsky, but I think for NFL.com, offered his own take. He stated, "I genuinely like what I see on Ty Simpson's tape. I see precisely why Dan Orlovsky feels this way. You witness more pro-level plays and throws, so to speak, from Simpson compared to Mendoza, and it's a huge, but just because you weren't required to display a skill or couldn't because of your teammates in college, doesn't mean you lack that ability." That's the key thing we must acknowledge with Fernando Mendoza. In my view, Mendoza is far more intelligent than many quarterbacks I've watched over the last 4 or 5 years. He consistently makes the correct decisions. When you have a coach like Klint Kubiak, he needs a quarterback who can execute his specific game plan. If Kubiak needs his quarterback to read a defense, audible into a new play, and then deliver a pass based on that read, Fernando Mendoza is exceptionally smart. He'll process it and execute exactly what Klint Kubiak demands. I'm not claiming Ty Simpson is incapable, but Simpson tends to improvise and play more outside the system. And some coaches might prefer that approach. But we just witnessed this with Ben Johnson last season. At times, Caleb Williams played outside the structure, and the Bears' offense faltered. Sure, the Bears secured many wins, but this upcoming season will expose more about Caleb Williams than people think, and they won't lead the league in forced turnovers again. It's simply not sustainable. That is a statistic that almost always regresses year to year. If the Bears only force half as many turnovers, can Caleb Williams still win you games? So that's definitely something to monitor heading into this season. But I believe Fernando Mendoza is incredibly bright. And again, just because Indiana's system didn't showcase a specific skill doesn't mean he lacks it. Ty Simpson was in a more spread out, pass-heavy offense. In contrast, on the other side of things, the other quarterback, Mendoza, was instructed, play it safe. Don't risk it. We can't afford turnovers. We will rely on our defense and our run game. You just have to make smart decisions, you know? If an RPO requires you to pull it and run, you do it. But broadly speaking, Mendoza's offense was restrictive. It doesn't mean he's incapable of more. Besides, watch his Cal tape. Put that man in a spread offense and he can absolutely sling it. Believe me, he is definitely capable. But I get why some people will remain skeptical that he's the answer. We will see how it unfolds. I expect a steady stream of updates from here on out. A very notable Bleacher Report piece was just published. It basically asked who were the biggest overpays in the 2026 free agency period. Naturally, the Las Vegas Raiders received a dismal grade from this analyst, Gary Davenport, who declared the Tyler Linderbaum signing a major mistake for the Las Vegas Raiders. So his argument is that because the Raiders awarded Linderbaum $27 million per year over 3 seasons, it's a terrible contract. They overpaid for a center when Creed Humphrey, the top earner, was only making around $19 million. So, the Raiders grossly overspent for Linderbaum, and it's being called one of free agency's worst deals. But I need to offer a counterpoint. Even as someone who preferred Jackson Powers-Johnson over Linderbaum, I see the logic behind bringing Linderbaum in. You've got Klint Kubiak, who runs a zone-heavy scheme. We're not talking 50% outside zone or something like that. Or, 30% wide zone here, 30% inside zone there, and the other 30 to 40% being power runs. That's not his system. Kubiak is all about the wide zone. His entire offensive philosophy is built on the wide zone concept, so they will run wide zone plays, either as a direct run or a play action pass off that look, probably 60% of the time. It will be a heavy wide zone scheme. And here's the thing about overpaying for Linderbaum in this free agent pool. The available offensive linemen were not impressive. So you are aggressively pursuing and overpaying for a center you know is the best available from the recent class. He's only 25 years old. He's a perfect fit for this particular scheme. And you knew the O-line needed a complete overhaul. You can't enter the draft thinking you'll just pick one guard and that will solve everything. The strategy was to acquire the best player available, which was Tyler Linderbaum, and then shift our top lineman prospect to guard, even though we believe he could play center. For the Raiders, this move means they could now have a top 10 to 12 offensive line, given their current scheme and players. Yes, the Raiders paid a premium, but it solves their O-line issue. They're now in a far better position than they were last season. You've got your left tackle, who I expect will be here for the next 3, 4, or even 5 years. Your center is secured for 3 years, and he's only 25 years old. JPJ is just 23. He should be a fixture for his entire rookie contract, hopefully. and even longer, assuming he stays healthy. The Raiders only have 2 spots left to figure out, with 7 guys who could fill them. So, while they might have overpaid, they landed a top NFL center, locking in 3 of their 5 offensive line positions. I believe the Raiders made the correct call. I also hate the idea that a center should only be paid $19 million. Why not add $1 million or 2 to make him the highest paid, or cap a running back at just $12 million? Honestly, if you ask me to choose between Saquon Barkley at $14 or $15 million or Jawan Jennings at $20 million, it's not even close. One guy will give you 1,500 yards, while the other might get you 700. So I don't care about position or pay scales. To me, that whole concept is completely overhyped. I'd much rather have the best center and guards than the most expensive tackles. In terms of contract value, I'm not paying a tackle $34 million. I'd rather give an elite center or guard $25 million. I believe offensive linemen are replaceable if you invest properly. And I also feel that instead of paying a number 15 wide receiver $25 million a year, give the best running back $17 million and get that guaranteed production. It just makes more sense. So, did the Raiders overpay for Tyler Linderbaum? Possibly, but it still makes their offensive line dramatically better. I disagree with that critique. Let's look at who else this person claims was overpaid. Jalen Phillips went to the Panthers for 4 years, $120 million. While he's not elite, I don't hate the signing for Carolina. You're paying this man $30 million per year when the next wave of defensive ends will be signing deals over $40 million. This isn't terrible. Plus, the Panthers needed pass rushers. The Panthers have a young offense and made the playoffs. They desperately needed to get defensive stops. Adding Jalen Phillips is precisely how you secure those game-changing stops. So I see this as a fantastic signing for the Panthers. Maybe you overpaid, but the team improved, which is the ultimate goal. You can afford it because you have a quarterback on a cheap rookie contract. Alec Pierce to the Indianapolis Colts. That was an overpay. I'm not going to defend that one at all. To be frank, I think the Colts are a terribly managed organization. Adafers, 4 years for $96 million. That's just under $25 million per year. Again, new top contracts exceed $40 million. Is his production worth that contract? Probably not. If you're paying him $24.5 million when Jalen Carter might cost $28 or $29 million, I'd take Jalen Carter in a heartbeat. But that's probably not a realistic scenario you can achieve. So, for the Washington Commanders, I understand the move. I don't hate it. It's a similar situation. It's a position of need that you are trying to solidify. I can't disagree with their approach. The Tennessee Titans signed a quarterback. A corner is a system-dependent position, so it makes no sense to me. Wan'Dale Robinson to the Giants, 4 years for $70 million. I don't think that's a bad contract at all. Robinson is pretty good. 4 years puts him at about $17.5 million per year. That's not terrible. I believe Wan'Dale Robinson's best football is still ahead of him. The man is a solid wide receiver. He might be a late bloomer, but I think he will be a legitimate star. That's a reasonable price for a good wideout. Zion Johnson was the biggest overpay of this class. Without a doubt. I agree completely. Zion Johnson was considered a bust. For those who don't know, how he landed almost $50 million over 3 years makes absolutely no sense to me. The guy wasn't even very good for the Chargers. He barely kept his starting job this past season. And frankly, I think the Chargers are terrible at developing offensive linemen. But even so, that is a massive overpayment. Anyway, let's move on. I have 2 more quick things I want to discuss. The Raiders have Chris McClellan visiting today. He is currently in the building. Remember, the draft process is in full swing. The Raiders will be meeting with several players, and free agency is not over yet. They will sign a couple more guys, bring in some rookies, and pick their brains. When a team isn't sold on their rookie, they'll start looking at how to plug that hole in the lineup. So they hit the free agent market for new talent. Enter Chris McClellan from Missouri, an absolute giant. He's 6'4", 313, but plays like he's 330. The combine listed him at 313, but on the field, he feels closer to 330. At 6'4", this defensive tackle is massive and has incredible length. His 34-inch arms are just ridiculous. He's a fascinating prospect who could potentially fill the nose tackle spot for the Raiders. But don't picture a classic nose tackle like Big Jelly, that 6 foot, 350-pound type of player. Instead, he's someone who uses that incredible arm length to two-gap effectively, and he's quite formidable against the run. His athleticism isn't top tier, and he's not an elite pass rusher, making him a perfect target in the later rounds. So keep Chris McClellan on your radar. He's an intriguing option for Las Vegas, and the Raiders absolutely must bolster their defensive tackle spot. That's the one spot I'm not 100% confident in. To me, you can't have a dominant defense without strong players at defensive tackle. They don't have to be superstars, just players who fit the system and can stop the run just as well as they rush the passer. You need powerful anchors for that line. The weakest defenses get shredded up the middle because they can't plug those gaps on big plays. Setting the edge 100 times means nothing if your interior line collapses and you get dominated on inside runs. Let's be real. Our top two guys, Thomas Booker and Adam Butler, are pass rush specialists, not run stoppers. They get overwhelmed by double teams. That's why we need a Chris Mecklin. Whether he plays true nose or not is irrelevant. We desperately need players with his skill set. We have to find that nose tackle presence. I'd even call up Big Jelly. He's 34, but maybe he's out there. Anything's possible. Now, let's pivot to Todd McShett's mock draft 3.0 and the 32 names he's projecting. And right away, I have a major problem with it. And I'm going to stand by this disagreement. I just don't see Francis Mauga from Miami as the #1 tackle. He's not a bad player. He has power and physicality, for sure. But the pro game brings a different level of speed, and that's his weakness. When edge rushers beat him with quickness, his hips open up, making him vulnerable to a bull rush. Again, I'm not saying he's terrible, just that I'm not sold on him. Now, Monroe Freeling, on the other hand, I absolutely love him, and that's firm. For my money, he is the premier tackle in this draft. If I need a tackle, he is my pick. It would be astounding if he isn't the first tackle off the board. Then again, teams have made questionable tackle selections before, so maybe not. So nothing is a shock, but Monroe Freeling deserves to be the #1 tackle selected. He could even go as high as the 3rd or 4th pick overall. So the Raiders take Fernando Mendoza, the Jets get Arl Reed, and the Cardinals pick an offensive tackle. Ruben Bain Jr. goes to the Titans. His stock is solid. He's a top 10 pick no matter what. Then the Giants select a running back, which is fascinating. They already have 2 good backs on rookie deals. And yes, Jeremiah Love is phenomenal. But is running back their biggest priority over other positions? It puts them in a compelling spot. Their final decision will be one to watch. Cleveland selects receiver Carell Tate, a notable choice since many analysts no longer consider him the top wideout in this draft. Many now prefer Jordan Tyson, while others have floated different names entirely for that #1 spot. I'll save that full discussion for another time. But next, the Commanders grab linebacker Sony Styles, who some call the best overall prospect. Then the Saints pick David Bailey. Kansas City takes corner Mansour Delane. Cincinnati picks Caleb Diaz. You can see the players coming off the board. This draft class is stacked with cornerbacks, which is fascinating. It's so rare to find a truly game-changing elite corner. Jalen Ramsey was probably the last prospect at that position who was a guaranteed superstar right out of the gate. We've seen some solid ones since, but drafting a corner is always a high-risk proposition. But I'll stop there. I believe Mansour Delaney is an exceptionally dependable corner. Apologies if I'm mispronouncing his name, but the kid is good. Next up, Jordan Tyson is picked by the Rams. Now for Spencer Fano. Many expected him to drop from the first round, but then his arm length was remeasured post-combine. His arms measured 3/4 of an inch longer, a change some believe will push his draft stock right back up. Don't be shocked if Fano ultimately transitions to the guard position in the pros. In fact, I believe he could become an elite center in this league. The guy is just a fantastic football player. His intelligence is off the charts, making him perfect for center. Perhaps that's the Ravens' plan with this selection. Moving on to other prospects. Safety Dylan Thman's draft stock is soaring right now. Many scouts believe he has the potential to match Caleb Diaz's talent. Now here's a curious one. The Panthers take Blake Miller. I question whether Miller can play tackle professionally. He seems better suited for guard. But you can never predict how a player's skills will translate. Vega Yona to the Steelers is a fantastic move for them. As for the rest, you can see the 49ers grab the first tight end of the draft. Some say this kid is a rare talent. Yeah, his game film is pure Kyle Pitts. And there you have it, people. A quick pulse check on the draft and where prospects stand. Of course, expect a major shakeup. Some players will soar, while others are bound to fall. This roller coaster will continue, and I am so hyped for it. I'm absolutely thrilled for this draft. The Raiders are in a phenomenal position. Tell me your thoughts. Hope you enjoyed this. What's the word? Ty Simpson, Fernando Mendoza. What's the call on them? Who are the other prospects you are watching? Unleash your thoughts in the comments. Smash that like, subscribe, and I'll see you for the next breakdown.